All right, people, we are live here on Fireside Knicks and also on my Twitter account as we are here to discuss what happened with the Knicks last night, losing to the Cleveland Cavaliers 94 to 109. They honestly got embarrassed. It was not a very good game at all. I mean, the first half they stayed pretty close, but then after that, things just completely fell off the rails for them after that. The third quarter, especially, is where things really fell apart. They ended up scoring only 11 points in that third quarter, and they shot 3 for 24 from the floor in that period, which is just terrible. I mean, there's no way around that whatsoever. And as far as the rest of the game goes, Karl Anthony Towns seemed to be the only one that really had anything going offensively, and he was basically frozen out in the entire second half, taking only one shot in the second half, which is downright inexcusable. There is no way around that whatsoever. I mean, you can say maybe he wasn't being aggressive or that Mike Brown was not drawing up plays for him. It doesn't matter. That is just terrible that was not able to happen. That they were not able to get Karl Anthony Towns involved at a time they needed him to, when he was the only one that really seemed to get going and was really the only one making somewhat of an impact against Cleveland. I mean, the Cavs have been one of the hottest teams in the league of late, so credit to them. You know, they played well. James Harden and Donovan Mitchell obviously did their, I mean, they didn't even do that good actually, but it's still tough having to deal with those guys nonetheless. And then, of course, Jalen Brunson was getting double teamed and the rest of the guys couldn't do much. Brunson kind of had a bad night. He went 6 of 19, but they also didn't get enough from other guys. OG Anunoby had another rough night. He only had 5 points and he was 2 of 8. Mikal Bridges was 6 for 17 and had 18 points. Josh Hart was lost pretty much all night. I mean, it was an all around collective bad effort from the Knicks. And that's just what I really want to know is why has this team struggled to find some consistency this season? And just been up and down with this group that they are constantly just finding ways to screw up. And I don't understand because some nights they look like one of the best teams in the league, a team that really nobody can beat, and then other nights, like last night, they look just completely vulnerable. I mean, some of these teams are not afraid of the Knicks, and it's very, very clear at this point in time right now that they just don't have it at the moment. They're still trying to figure things out. And, I would like to say that I do think it's weird that they're still figuring things out this late into the season. I would have thought that maybe we'd be past the growing pain phase, we'd be past all that stuff, and we'd be really looking at a team that has kind of got itself together, kind of gelled a little bit. But that's not been the case right now. Right now, they are just completely struggling, and it's not good. I really don't understand why they're looking like this. And even though it sounds weird because they're 37 and 22, sitting third in the Eastern Conference, they should be much better than this. They shouldn't be getting punked by the Cavaliers on the road, getting destroyed by the Detroit Pistons 3 times this season. That shouldn't be happening. The Knicks had expectations placed on them to where they're supposed to be among the best of the best. And while they are one of the better teams in the league, they're definitely not a title favorite right now. And that's ultimately the most concerning thing with me right now is why they're struggling so bad, why they're having an issue finding any sort of rhythm. And it isn't just as a team. I mean, you're looking at a few guys right now who were brought into this team, 2 summers ago to make an instant impact who are just really not providing that. Up until the past couple games, Karl Anthony Towns was having a bad season. Mikal Bridges has had one of the weirdest seasons to evaluate really ever because while he has been available, you feel like he's not living up to that 5 first-round pick price tag, which unfortunately I think a lot of people kind of envisioned what he wasn't going to live up to. But it's looking even worse and worse as these games go on that he just can't live up to that. He's not providing an impact really whatsoever. He's kind of just there. I don't know if he really fits. I don't know if it's the guys around him. I don't know if it's himself. I really don't know anymore. But something is obviously off with Mikal Bridges. Something's not there going on with him right now whatsoever. And you look at other guys like Josh Hart too, who at this point I think we're past the phase of starting him. If you ask me, I don't think he should be starting anymore. I think it's time we need to consider Landry Shamet starting, or even Jose Alvarado, somebody else. I don't really care. I don't think Josh Hart is meant to be starting though on this team, just because I don't think with the lack of offensive aggression that he has, I don't think it's exactly meant for him to be starting at this point. With the team trying to win a title, Knicks need a guy at that position who is just ready to score, willing to put the ball up. And Josh Hart at times gets hesitant. We know that's how he plays, but that's not good for the starters. I would rather that happen off the bench. And plus, if he came off the bench, I think he would be more aggressive. I think he would be willing to take more shots, willing to do more things around the court, and he would also have an easier lane to play make. So that's my opinion on that. But when you look at the rest of the guys right now, it's just weird to evaluate this team because You feel like one day they look amazing and then the next game they just look terrible. And for a title contender, it's not good not knowing which version of them you're going to get each day in and day out. You expect out of a team that has these kind of expectations to look like a title contender most nights. Obviously, there's going to be some blips in the season and there's going to be moments where, they're kind of struggling, but you really feel like ever since Christmas, really, that the Knicks have just been one of the most inconsistent teams in the league. And it sounds ironic because their record would say otherwise, and some other metrics may say otherwise. But if you take it down to where you're watching these games on the television instead of just looking at the box scores or reading the scores or anything like that, you'll see that this team is just very inconsistent. They don't have, like yesterday, for example, against Cleveland, the third quarter. I mean, I can go back and look through that third quarter and just tell you everything that went wrong. I mean, the offense got stagnant again, and I don't understand how one half they can look great on offense or decent on offense at least, and then just completely fall apart in the second half on offense. I don't understand how that's possible. I'm not really sure where they're completely just losing it on that side of the floor. I never understood that. And the defense, it was really good during the 8-game win streak back in the early part of this month, but lately it started to show the signs of the lack of communication again, the stuff that was giving them problems during that losing stretch when they went 2-9, and the other times throughout the year. Even when they were winning at the start of the year, the defense was not that great. So I just don't understand. Maybe it's a roster construction problem, but something has to give. And really, the Knicks are running out of time to really figure this thing out. Karl Anthony Towns had an interesting quote, and I'm going to quote this from James Edwards of The Athletic. He basically said, in short, that they're still trying to figure things out, that they are still kind of learning the system and all that stuff, and they're trying to figure out their roles. And I get it, but we're pretty far into the season now, so you would think that they would have had this stuff figured out by now, or at least kind of have an idea of what to do. But apparently they don't. Apparently I was wrong, and that they don't have an idea of what's going on, and that's concerning because this team has a ton of talent. On paper, this team should be easily steamrolling through the Eastern Conference, finding a way to really just make an impact every single night and really get some winning basketball. But at times, they just look lost. They look like they don't gel together. They don't mesh. They don't fit. I don't know what it is, but it's very concerning, and I don't understand why that's the case. I am trying so hard to figure it out, and I have been trying so hard to figure it out through these first 59 games of the season, but I haven't been able to figure it out. As far as I'm concerned right now, if the Knicks enter a playoff series against, say, the Detroit Pistons or something, they're screwed. They're screwed. I don't think they can handle that team. I don't think they can handle physical teams. And I know we had a lot of these conversations last season, and they ended up making the Eastern Conference Finals, which they can easily do the same thing again. But the expectations are different this time around. Last season, they didn't have that kind of expectation. Everyone thought they were just going to lose to Boston in the second round, and it wasn't their year. And then they beat Boston, and everyone was like, okay, well, they should be able to beat the Pacers now, right? And they didn't do that. They got, honestly, ran off the court by Indiana. So we can't just assume that they're going to have the same type of run this upcoming postseason when it gets there. You want the Knicks to enter a high seed. You don't want the Knicks to be, the fourth or the fifth seed, and you end up having to face Detroit in the second round, and then you're a second round exit, and now you've taken a step back. You don't want that to happen. You want the Knicks to finish in second or third or even first, but even though I don't think first is really possible at this point, but it's technically not impossible as we stand right now, but you get the point. You want to see this team succeed in the regular season. You don't want to see them just kind of take the regular season off. And I get the team was built to succeed in the playoffs, and that's fine. But I want to see how they look in the regular season because it does matter. We can't just run under the notion that the regular season means absolutely nothing. And games like last night where they got absolutely smoked by Cleveland and kind of just stood no chance. Really, I don't even think they had a lead after the first minute of the game. When stuff like that is happening, that's all around concerning, downright concerning. I mean, you can't try to convince yourself otherwise. You cannot try to convince yourself that them losing these types of games means nothing. That it means nothing. We're gonna just go in the playoffs. It's fine. No, these games do mean something. It kind of shows how this team is, what kind of team they are. How they can handle physical teams. I can live with losing a close game here and there, but getting blown out is just not acceptable. I mean, losing to the Detroit Pistons in the three times that they did is embarrassing. I would go as far as say that's much worse, arguably, than how they lost to those games against Boston last year. Where they got absolutely trounced by them. I would say the games that they've lost to Detroit is worse. And the way they lost to Cleveland last night, I mean, yeah, it's a bad game. Sometimes you can just brush it off, but you feel like it's a lot of good teams that they tend to struggle with. They have a better track record against good teams this year than last year, I guess, because last year they couldn't beat a good team to save their life. Meanwhile, this year they did beat Cleveland twice already this season, and they have beaten Boston twice, which is great. I'm glad they've been able to do that, but they despite them doing that, they have made no ground in the Eastern Conference, and in fact have lost a lot of ground. And Cleveland caught up to them. Cleveland was down 6 games to the Knicks around the New Year. They were down by 6 games, and now they are currently tied. Obviously, the Knicks own the tiebreaker, so the Knicks, if they end up tied, would be finishing as the seed ahead of them. But still, that's how bad the Knicks have kind of let this kind of opportunity get away from them, and that's the most frustrating thing because you feel like that they had a good chance to really kind of just pull away with the East or make it a big run with Detroit, kind of have them go neck and neck while the rest of the East figures itself out. Now the Knicks find themselves in the thick of it, and now there's a possibility the Knicks end up even as a seed as low as 5, and then you see the situation where they're not having home court advantage in the postseason, which would be absolutely terrible because we know how bad the Knicks have been on the road this year. I know their record would say that they've been okay on the road, but they have not been good on the road this year. They have struggled mightily on the road because a lot of the good teams they have played on the road have absolutely destroyed them. And that's not okay. For a team that has prided itself on making themselves a title contender, you expect better out of these guys. You really do. And I kind of want to, circle back a little bit to yesterday against Cleveland and really talk about Karl-Anthony Towns for a second because I don't understand how he only took one shot in the second half. That blew my mind. When I found out too that Mikal Bridges was taking as many shots as he was taking and Karl-Anthony Towns was just nowhere to be found, I don't understand how you let that happen. If you're Mike Brown, how do you let that happen? I really want to know because that's inexcusable. There is no way around that. You can't just let that happen. Karl-Anthony Towns has been the team's best player in the past couple games. You know, you got to make sure you're getting that guy involved, especially against Cleveland and especially when he actually kind of had things going. He was 4 for 4 in the first half. He was making his shots. He was playing all right defense again. And then in the second half, just nowhere to be found. Not getting involved offensively, not making it. Literally only made one shot because it's the only shot he took, and just nowhere. Complete ghost. And that's not good. You can blame a number of factors for that. You can blame Towns for not being aggressive or, asserting himself a little bit. You can blame Brown for not drawing up plays. You can blame Brunson for not passing the ball or for, pounding it too much. Whatever. It doesn't matter because the reality is that they weren't getting him involved and ended up losing the game. And you can't just get away with doing that. You can't have a guy like Karl-Anthony Towns be on your team just to do that, just to not stand around and be a body. No, you got to have him get involved. You got to have him get the ball, get his touches, get aggressive in the paint, make some 3-pointers. I don't care. You got to get him involved. It can't happen the way it happened last night. There is no reason that Josh Hart should have doubled Karl-Anthony Towns' shot attempts. No reason for that. None. Zero. And I'm not even trying to go on Josh Hart on this for that, but there's just no way that can happen. You can't have your two best players be completely uninvolved or one of your best players be uninvolved. That can't happen. A good team makes sure that their top guys are involved. So that's really all I got to say on that front. It's just it's frustrating because I know this team is so much better than they have been playing as this year. They're so much better. They are. They are not even a decent. They are a good basketball team. But at times they don't look like they want to be a good basketball team. At times they look like they kind of just, feel like they can just coast or they don't really need to do much. That can't happen anymore. We're in the stretch run now. They have to really prove something a little bit and kind of prove themselves worthy of being in that title contention conversation. And a lot of people right now are not taking this team seriously anymore. And honestly, it's rightfully so. They are in the right to do that because right now they shouldn't be taken seriously. They don't deserve to be taken seriously when they are looking like this against decent teams. Even if they lost a close game last night, I feel like you would still have some people respecting the Knicks for a hard effort. But I mean, they got absolutely walked down. They didn't get any stops in the first half, and then in the second half they couldn't buy a bucket. They actually held Cleveland to only 23 points in that third quarter. That Cleveland, by the way, was the best third quarter team in the NBA, or best third quarter scoring team in the NBA entering last night. They averaged over 30 points in the third quarters, and they held them to 23 points. So they didn't do bad on the defensive front in that third quarter, but their offense completely fell apart, and that's kind of the issue. Why can't they get both to do good at the same time for a long stretch? We've seen, during the winning streak, the offense and the defense was good. Had like the highest net rating by far, and they were doing a lot of good things on both sides of the ball. That's the type of basketball that they need to play more consistently. And ever since that win streak, they're playing about 500 basketball over the past like 6 or 7 games. So I just don't know where the consistency is. It's been all year that we have been looking for some consistency from this group. They started the year 2-3. Then they went on that big run where they were like 21-6 up until the new year, where they were dominating when they won the NBA Cup. That looked like the team that I thought they were going to be, a title contending group, a team that could really stand their own against good teams. And then ever since then, it's been up and down, up and down, up and down. You had that 2-9 stretch, the 8-game win streak, and now they're laboring 500 pretty much ever since the All-Star break. I mean, I just don't get it anymore. I want to know why they're so inconsistent. It's they're consistently inconsistent, if you want me to call it that way, because it's getting ridiculous at this point. You feel like, and I tweeted this last night, you really feel like that you don't know which version of them you're going to get every single night. Then that's not a good thing for a team that we claim to be a title contender. That's not good. You should know which version of them you're going to get most nights. You should know you're going to get a team that's going to fight hard, it's going to play hard, and keep the game close at the bare minimum, and come away with a lot of wins. And they have won a lot of games this year. But you feel like when they lose bad. They lose bad. And those bad losses, they can really tell you how a team is. They really can. Because playoff series are 7 games. You're obviously not going to be expected to win every single one of those games. I'm not stupid. It's going to be tough no matter how good or bad your team is. But you also can't just, kind of just shake off these regular season losses as nothing. These regular season losses do mean something. They are very much so they are a way to identify how your team is. Give your team an identity. And that's something the Knicks lack. They lack a good identity. They lack an identity of being either physical or an offensive powerhouse or whatever it is. They hired Mike Brown to be an offensive powerhouse. That's what they did. And they haven't been that. They are a top 5 offense in the metrics. Yes. But they have some nights where the offense just looks clunky, where last night, for example, nobody can make a shot. I thought they actually got some good looks last night. They couldn't make them. And even in that third quarter, they got some good shots. They missed them. But they also had some awful, awful offensive possessions where the ball was not moving, where they were forcing a lot of shots, taking bad shots either underneath the rim or at the perimeter. It's just bad. It's a bad process. And I'm not going to, fully come on here to say, oh, fire Mike Brown. No, I'm not saying that. But I am going to question if he is, in fact, the guy that can actually level this team up. Because that was the whole point of firing Tom Thibodeau, was to get a guy who can level them up, who can take them to the next step. And very much so, Mike Brown could end up doing that. He can. He's been to the finals before. He's led on some successful teams. I'm not going to doubt him fully right now. But I am going to question it because I feel like the players and Mike Brown are just not clicking. They're not on the same page. There's a lot of different changes that are being undergone right now. I don't know if the players are comfortable with Mike Brown's system. They're trying to figure it out. I don't know. I don't know anymore. There's too many questions for me to be hypothetically asking for a team that I thought would be cruising through the regular season. And you can credit the other teams in the Eastern Conference for making it a little more competitive. It's definitely a much more competitive conference than was initially anticipated coming into the season. But at the same time, you feel like the Knicks should not be in a position where they're battling between the 3rd and the 6th seed. They shouldn't be in that position. They should be comfortably in 2nd or even in 1st. You know what I mean? That is where they should be. They should be the best team in the Eastern Conference, the team to beat. And right now, they're far from that. They're far from the team to beat. Matter of fact, I think a lot of teams in the Eastern Conference right now are viewing the Knicks as fraudulent. They're viewing them as pretenders, not actual contenders, and they're not taking them as seriously because they know they can beat them in a playoff series. They know they can identify their weaknesses pretty easily, and the Knicks tend to struggle at fixing those weaknesses pretty quickly. So that's really all I gotta say. I mean, I didn't want to come on here just to rant for 20 minutes, but last night's game was really frustrating because I feel like they could have won that. I wanted to see them kind of sweep the season series against Cleveland, and even though they won the season series, that's great. I'm happy they were able to do that in their own tiebreaker. I am happy about that, but I'm not happy with how they came out in a game where you feel like they needed to still prove something a little bit. Prove that you can beat a bunch of good teams because we've seen them beat good teams this year. We've seen them beat Denver. We've seen them beat Houston. We've seen them beat Boston twice. We've seen them beat Philly twice. We've seen them beat Cleveland twice. They have beaten good teams this year, but they have also looked really bad against some good teams because they've gotten destroyed by Detroit, losing last night to Cleveland. They got some tough games coming up. They got the Spurs coming up. They got OKC coming up. They got some very important games on the way. So the Knicks really need to kind of take this next month or two to really figure things out and figure out who exactly they are, who they're built like, and what to do about it from here. It's that simple at this point. They need to identify who they are and who they're trying to be because we all know that this team is capable of winning a title. We know that. And we know they can easily do that this year. I want to see them play championship level basketball though. And we haven't seen that a whole lot this year, which is very disappointing. So I'm not trying to, be too negative on here today. I understand the team is still good and they're in a good spot. They are a good team. I'm not on here saying they're a bad team, but I have to highlight their flaws and highlight their inconsistencies because, well, that's the reality. They are an inconsistent basketball team struggling to find a rhythm, and I don't understand why it's taken this long to find said rhythm, but they need to figure it out. It's that simple. They need to figure it out. So that's what I'm hoping they can end up doing. But I just wanted to come on here and do a pretty short stream. I do think this is a good spot for me to kind of end this off a little bit, but they got another day off tomorrow, and then they got Milwaukee coming up. That's going to be a pretty important game, even though the Bucks are not very good, and I don't expect Giannis to be playing. So they should be able to take care of business against a bad Milwaukee team. Now, if they end up losing, we're gonna have a whole different conversation right there about that because that can't happen. But again, after that game, they have some very tough ones ahead. They got San Antonio very soon. They got OKC coming up. They got some tough ones ahead in March. So they need to really put their foot on the gas and really change some things and really find a consistent rhythm. Find consistency. I'm tired of this team going on this up and down trend or this back and forth. I'm tired of that. I want them to be consistent. That's all I ask for. But anyways, guys, I do hope you guys enjoyed this short live stream. Make sure you follow us on all of our social media platforms. We are on TikTok, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, everywhere else. All the social media, pretty much everywhere. And you can also follow my personal Twitter account. It is right there on the screen. And you're probably also, if you're watching this also from my Twitter, make sure to follow me as well. And I'll see you guys in the next episode of Fireside Knicks. Peace out, and let's go Knicks.